What if one of the most powerful men on Earth is moving toward a crisis he doesn't fully see coming? And what if the clearest warning about it comes not from a spy agency or a leaked military plan, but from one man who spent years studying his words in his own language? That question may matter more in 2028 than almost anywhere else. Not because of what's already scheduled to happen, because of what might not be. Kevin Rudd was once Australia's Prime Minister. He met Xi Jinping decades ago, before most of the world knew the name.
When do you first come across Xi Jinping?
Well, it's interesting. When I was a junior woodchuck in the Australian Embassy at the time.
Is that a official term?
Increasingly, yes.
What does a former head of government see in one man that intelligence agencies might miss? Rewind. Rudd's career began in the Australian Foreign Service, posted to Beijing in the 1980s, before China's opening to the world was a settled fact. He first met Xi Jinping in the late 1980s, when Xi was a local official doing advance work for a visiting delegation. At the time, Rudd says, Xi was essentially unknown. So what changes when the unknown man becomes the most powerful one in the country? Years later, as Prime Minister, Rudd sat across from Xi for hours. No interpreters speaking Chinese. He came away certain that Xi didn't see himself as an ordinary politician managing the next election cycle. He saw himself as a historical figure with a national mission. But access is not understanding. In 2022, Rudd completed a doctorate at Oxford. The subject, Xi Jinping's ideological worldview, built by systematically studying his writings, speeches, and party documents in the original Chinese, not in translation. That research became the foundation of his 2024 book on how Xi actually thinks. What the research revealed wasn't a politician, it was an ideologue. Xi Jinping, in this reading, is shaped by a father who survived repeated political purges and stayed loyal to the party anyway. To Xi, discipline isn't an obstacle to progress, it's the force behind it. Layered on top of that, the story China tells about a century of foreign humiliation and a nation now returning by right to great power status. Sovereignty isn't just a legal question in Beijing. It's emotional, historical, political, and Xi's answer to who decides China's future is consistent. The party decides. The party does not negotiate its authority. In 2017, Xi Jinping thought was written directly into the Chinese Communist Party's constitution, making Xi the first leader since Mao to have his name attached to a guiding ideology while still in power. The following year, China's state constitution removed the two-term limit on the presidency. Together, the two changes reduced the formal constraints on Xi's authority. A centralized system can look stable right up until the moment every institution is waiting for one person to decide. What happens when caution itself starts to look like disloyalty? Start with the generals. More than 100 senior PLA officers have been purged in recent years. Officially, this is an anti-corruption campaign. And corruption in procurement and promotion is real, especially inside the Rocket Force, the branch that controls China's missile arsenal. But analysts also read the purges as something else, a way of enforcing political loyalty inside a military that answers to the party first and only reaches the state through it. Across the PLA's command structure, units at or above the regimental level are led through a dual command system, a military commander alongside a political commissar whose job isn't combat readiness, it's ideological reliability. The anti-corruption campaign itself is driven from the center, limiting how much local commanders can police themselves. Promotion in this system was never only about skill. It requires clearing layers of loyalty screening that most Western militaries simply don't have. And several of the officers purged were men Xi himself had promoted only years earlier. Since 2023, Li Shangfu was removed without an immediate public explanation. He and his predecessor, Wei Fenghe, were later expelled from the party over corruption allegations. To those watching closely, it's proof that no position in the system is permanent, not even the ones Xi handed out himself. 100 generals is a message. What's the message to everyone still in the room? Every one of these tools already sits on the table today. In 2028, they may sit on a very different one. Now, the economy, and this isn't only about making China richer. Take semiconductors, essential to AI, weapon systems, and modern industry. The world's most advanced chips rely on a crucial class of lithography machine made by just one company, the Dutch firm ASML. When American export controls began restricting those machines and the most powerful AI chips from reaching China, Washington wasn't just protecting a market. It responded with its own export controls, first on gallium and germanium, and later with restrictions affecting rare earth technologies and other critical materials the rest of the world's own chip and defense industries depend on. Two economies, each holding a piece of what the other one needs. When both sides are holding a piece of what the other one needs, who actually blinks first? Now, the map itself. In June 2020, Beijing applied a national security law directly onto Hong Kong. Not through Hong Kong's own legislature, but through Annex 3 of its basic law, drafted entirely in Beijing. In the South China Sea, reclaimed reefs became military outposts, runways, hangars, radar, missile infrastructure. The outposts remained. The same instinct shows up inside China too. Jack Ma was once the face of Chinese entrepreneurial success. Wealthy, visible, admired worldwide. Then, around the time he publicly criticized China's financial regulators in 2020, his profile changed sharply. Ant Group's planned public listing was halted, and Jack Ma himself largely receded from public view for an extended period. The boundary is always there, and the party decides where it sits. Generals, technology, Hong Kong, the reefs, Jack Ma, 5 arenas, one governing instinct: control the risk before it controls you. All of it circles back to a single year, 2028. Taiwan holds a presidential election. The United States holds its own election the same year. For over a decade, Beijing has increased military pressure around Taiwan. Near daily flights into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, larger naval drills, and exercises that analysts increasingly describe as rehearsal for coercion or conflict. There's another layer to this, tied directly to the chips discussed a few minutes ago. Taiwan makes the overwhelming majority of the world's most advanced semiconductors. Some analysts call that a silicon shield, the idea that the world can't afford to let Taiwan fall. Others call it exactly the leverage that makes the island worth taking. An election that produces a government Beijing considers too independence-leaning could sharpen that pressure further. At the exact moment, Washington is consumed by its own transfer of power. Beijing may believe Washington is less willing than before to take risks abroad. Rudd doesn't call this a set date for an attack. He calls it something narrower and in some ways more unsettling, a high-risk window, the kind of overlapping uncertainty that, in past confrontations, has been exactly when leaders misjudged how far they could go. What follows next isn't confirmed intelligence. It's Rudd's own assessment, his hypothesis, by his own description, built from decades of reading one man closely.
What do I fear? A miscalculation by Xi Jinping about the level of American resolve.
In his own words, he worries Xi could miscalculate American resolve. Reading the Iran episode as proof that Washington's willingness to act has weakened at precisely the moment his own language toward Trump has turned into direct warnings of possible collision. The risk runs in both directions. Washington may assume China won't escalate because the costs would be immense. Beijing may assume Washington won't respond for the same reason. Each side could believe the other one blinks first. In a system built on strength, history, and control, what happens the day that assumption turns out to be wrong?